I never thought I'd spend a Sunday afternoon with Coke dripping down my blouse and my daughter screaming that I was being cruel. But there I was, sitting at my kitchen table, texting my lawyer 4 words. Phase 1 is complete. Let me back up. My name is Linda Moore. I'm 66 years old, been retired from teaching for 4 years now. My husband Frank passed away 3 years ago from a heart attack. Since then, I've been living alone in our 3-bedroom bungalow in East York, Toronto. It's a modest place. We bought it back in 1985 for $89,000. Today, it's worth nearly $1.8 million. The neighborhood changed. Young professionals everywhere. The kind of people who renovate their basements into home offices. My daughter Melissa is 38, works in marketing, married to Josh. They have 2 kids, Sophie and Ben, 7 and 5. They live out in Mississauga, about 45 minutes away. I see the grandkids maybe twice a month, usually when they need a babysitter. Sunday started normal enough. Melissa texted Tuesday, "Can we come by Sunday? Need to talk about family stuff." I spent Saturday preparing. Chicken with roasted potatoes, Caesar salad, butter tarts. I even got coloring books for the kids. They arrived around 2. Josh's Honda pulled in and I watched from the kitchen window as they unbuckled the kids. Melissa was carrying wine, expensive looking. She only brings expensive things when she wants something. "Mom," Melissa hugged me. Brief, efficient. "House looks great." The kids ran over with drawings from school. At least they were still genuine. Josh kissed my cheek. "Linda, thanks for having us. This wine is from the Hagra. It's supposed to be excellent." We settled in the living room. Melissa wanted to chat first. That should have been my warning. She's always on her phone, never wants to just chat. Today, she was focused, looking at Josh every few seconds like they were running through a script. "So, Mom," Melissa started, "we've been talking about your situation." "My situation?" "Living here alone, this big house, it's a lot for one person." I smiled. "I manage just fine. House is paid off." "But you're getting older," Josh added, leaning forward. "We worry. Falls, emergencies. What if something happens?" "I have my phone. Neighbors check in." Melissa exchanged another glance with Josh. "Here it comes." "We have a proposal," Melissa said, voice bright. "What if you sold this place and moved in with us? We have that basement suite. You'd have your own space, but we'd be right upstairs." I set down my tea carefully. "It makes so much sense," Melissa continued faster. "You'd be close to the kids, and honestly, if you sold this place, you could help with our mortgage. We'd all be financially secure." There it was. Josh jumped in. "It's perfect, Linda. You wouldn't be alone. We'd all be closer, like a real family." "And what happens to the money from my house?" I asked quietly. "Well, it would go into a joint account," Josh said, "for everyone's benefit." "Whose name?" Melissa laughed nervously. "Mom, don't be paranoid. It would be a family account." The oven timer went off. Saved by the bell. "Let me check on dinner." I walked into the kitchen and closed my eyes for 5 seconds. This was exactly what Henry said would happen. You see, 3 months ago, my financial advisor called. Someone tried to access my investment accounts. They'd used my personal information, the IP address traced to Josh's work in Mississauga. I didn't confront them. I called Henry Blake, my estate lawyer. He knew exactly what this was. "I see this every month," Henry told me. "Adult children getting impatient about inheritance, testing boundaries. Then it escalates." Over 3 months, Henry helped me set up safeguards. Cognitive assessment proving I was sharp, updated will, living trust, and hidden cameras in my living room, dining room, and kitchen. "If they're planning something," Henry said, "they'll reveal it, and you'll have proof." I plated dinner and called them to the table. Pleasant enough at first. Then Melissa brought it up again. "So, about moving in with us, have you thought about it?" I set down my fork. "I'm not interested in selling. I like my independence." Melissa's smile flickered. Independence? You're 66, living alone. That's my choice. But you have all this space. Her voice sharpened. 3 bedrooms. What are you even using them for? That's my business. Josh leaned forward. Linda, be reasonable. Eventually, you'll need help. Then I'll hire help. On my terms. Those places cost a fortune, Melissa laughed. Why waste money on strangers? Because it's my money. And my house. Silence. I sent the kids to watch TV. Once they left, Melissa's mask dropped. This is unbelievable. Your selfishness. Saying no isn't selfish, I said calmly. It's a boundary. Josh stood, face flushed. Do you know what our mortgage is? We're drowning, Linda, and you're hoarding space like some miser. I live here. You live here alone. Dad's been gone 3 years. When will you think about someone other than yourself? That hurt, but I stayed neutral. We need help, Melissa said. Families should support each other. Support doesn't mean giving you my house. Why not? She leaned over the table. Give me one reason. Because I don't want to. Her hand shot out. She grabbed Josh's Coke and hurled it at me. Liquid splashed across my face, my blouse, my hair. Cold, sticky. The glass cracked against the table. I stood slowly. Coke dripped from my chin. I think you both need to leave. Mom, I'm sorry, that... Yes, you did mean it. I walked to the bathroom, grabbed a towel, looked in the mirror. Coke in my hair. Sunday dinner destroyed. Perfect. I said, please leave. Take the kids home. They gathered the kids in silence. When they were in the car, I closed the door, locked it, sat at the kitchen table. I pulled out my phone and texted Henry. Phase 1 is complete. He responded immediately. On it. Don't clean anything. I'm calling the police. I sat there, Coke drying on my collar, and smiled. They'd finally shown their true colors, and I had it all on camera. The morning after I texted Henry, I woke up at 6 a.m. with dried Coke still crusted in my hairline. My blouse sat in the sink, soaking in cold water. The dining room table had a sticky ring where Josh's glass had landed. I didn't clean it. Henry told me not to touch anything until the police came. Instead, I made coffee and sat in Frank's old armchair by the window. The house felt different now, quieter, like it was holding its breath. My phone buzzed. Henry. Police will be there at 9 a.m. Stay calm. This is just documentation. I showered, changed into clean clothes, and waited. They arrived exactly on time. 2 officers, a younger woman with kind eyes, and an older man who looked like he'd seen worse. They took photos of the dining room, the cracked glass, my stained blouse. They asked me to walk them through what happened. I told them everything, calmly, chronologically. The proposal to sell my house, the escalation, the drink thrown in my face. Do you feel unsafe in your home? The female officer asked. No, I said. I feel unsafe around my daughter and her husband. She nodded. We'll file an assault report. Given your age and the family relationship, this may fall under elder abuse statutes in Ontario. That carries additional weight. Elder abuse. The word sat heavy in the room. The older officer handed me a card. If they contact you, don't engage. Document everything. Texts, calls, voicemails. Let your lawyer handle communication. After they left, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at my phone.
17 missed calls from Melissa. 12 texts. "Mom, please call me. I'm so sorry. It was an accident. Josh feels terrible. Can we please just talk?" I didn't respond. Henry arrived an hour later with a folder of documents. He sat across from me, opened his briefcase, and pulled out a small USB drive. "The cameras caught everything," he said. "Clear video, clear audio. Melissa calling you selfish. Josh saying you're hoarding space. The drink thrown, your calm exit. It's textbook evidence. What happens now?" We filed for a restraining order. Both of them. No contact except through legal counsel. We also submit the financial access attempt to the police as a separate complaint. Attempted fraud under the criminal code. I nodded slowly. "And Melissa?" Henry's expression softened. "Linda, I know she's your daughter, but she participated. She escalated. She stood by while her husband assaulted you. The law doesn't care about bloodlines when it comes to abuse." "I know." He slid a document across the table. "This is an updated power of attorney, naming me and my financial advisor as co-trustees. Melissa can't access anything. Not your accounts, not your property, not your medical decisions. If something happens to you, it goes through us first." I signed it without hesitation. "One more thing," Henry said. "Don't be surprised if they show up here. People like Josh don't handle rejection well. If they do, don't open the door. Call 911 immediately." He was right. That evening, just after sunset, headlights pulled into my driveway. Josh's Honda, engine idling. I stood in the darkened living room and watched through the curtain. Melissa sat in the passenger seat, face illuminated by her phone. Josh got out, walked up to my porch, and knocked. 3 times. Hard. "Linda, open up. We need to talk." I didn't move. "I know you're in there. Your car's in the driveway." My hand hovered over my phone, ready to call 911. He knocked again, louder. "This is ridiculous. We're family." Then Melissa's voice, softer from the car. "Josh, let's just go." "No, she doesn't get to ignore us."
He pounded on the door one last time, then walked back to the car. They sat there for another 5 minutes before finally driving away. I called Henry immediately. "Documented," he said. "Time, date, what was said. I'll add it to the restraining order application." I sat down and typed everything into a note on my phone. When I finished, I looked around my quiet house, the house they wanted to take from me. Not anymore. 2 days after Josh's driveway confrontation, Henry called with news. The restraining order hearing is scheduled for Friday, but there's something else. The bank finished their internal investigation on the account access attempt. I sat down. And it was Josh, definitively. He used your date of birth, Frank's middle name, and Melissa's birthday as security answers. He got through 2 verification steps before the system locked him out and flagged it as suspicious activity. My stomach turned. How much was he trying to move? $42,000 into an account registered under a numbered company. We traced the registration. Josh is listed as the director. I closed my eyes. This wasn't impulsive. This was planned. "There's more," Henry continued. "I had a forensic accountant review your transaction history. 3 small transfers went through over the past year. 500 here, 800 there, always under $1,000 to avoid triggering alerts. Total of about $4,000. I never authorized those." "I know. The IP addresses match Josh's workplace and their home in Mississauga. Linda, this isn't just attempted fraud, it's systematic theft." The word hung between us. Theft. From my own family. What do we do? "We file a criminal complaint with Toronto Police Fraud Division. With the bank records and your testimony, they'll have enough for charges. But I need to ask, are you prepared for what this means?
Criminal charges against your son-in-law, possibly your daughter as accessory. This will destroy whatever relationship is left. I thought about Sunday dinner. The Coke dripping down my face, Melissa screaming that I was cruel. The relationship is already destroyed, I said. They just haven't accepted it yet. Henry exhaled. Then we move forward. I'll draft the complaint today. That afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Mrs. Moore? This is Detective Sarah Kwan from Toronto Police Service, Financial Crimes Unit. Your lawyer Henry Blake filed a report regarding unauthorized access to your banking accounts. I'd like to set up a time to take your statement. My heart raced. Of course. When? Tomorrow morning, if possible. I've reviewed the preliminary evidence Mr. Blake submitted. This appears to be a clear case of financial exploitation of a vulnerable person. Vulnerable. I hated that word. But legally, that's what I was. A widow over 65, living alone. I said, I'll be there. After hanging up, I walked through my house. Frank's study, untouched since he died, the kitchen where we'd cooked together for 40 years, the bedroom where I still slept on my side of the bed. They wanted to take this from me. Not just the house, my autonomy, my dignity, my right to say no. I pulled out my laptop and opened my email. 17 messages from Melissa over the past 2 days. I hadn't read any of them. Now I opened the most recent one. Mom, please. We made a mistake. Josh was stressed about money and I was trying to help. We never meant to hurt you. The kids keep asking about Grandma. Sophie drew you a picture. Can we please just talk? I'm begging you. Attached was a photo. Sophie's crayon drawing, a house with stick figures labeled Grandma, Mommy, Daddy, me, and Ben. Hearts everywhere. I stared at it for a long time. Then I forwarded the email to Henry with one line. Using the grandchildren now. Document this.
I closed my laptop and made myself tea. Tomorrow, I'd give my statement to the police. Friday, I'd face them in court for the restraining order hearing. But tonight, I sat in Frank's chair and let myself feel everything. The betrayal, the grief, the anger. And underneath it all, something unexpected. Relief. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't pretending anymore. I wasn't making excuses for them or questioning my own judgment. I was protecting myself. And that wasn't cruelty. That was survival. Friday morning arrived cold and gray. I dressed carefully. Navy blazer, simple blouse, pearl earrings Frank gave me on our 30th anniversary. Henry said appearance mattered in family court. You want to look competent, independent, and credible, he told me. Let them look desperate. We met outside the courthouse at 9 a.m. Henry carried a leather briefcase thick with documents. I carried nothing but my purse and my resolve. They'll be here, Henry said, scanning the parking lot. They have to be. It's a restraining order hearing. Both parties must attend. 10 minutes later, Josh's Honda pulled in. Melissa got out first, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Conservative, buttoned to the collar. Josh wore a suit that looked rental store stiff. They saw me across the parking lot. Melissa's face crumpled immediately. She started walking toward me. Linda, please, can we just... Henry stepped between us. Mrs. Moore is represented by counsel. All communication goes through me. You know this. Josh grabbed Melissa's elbow, pulling her back. This is insane. She's your mother. And you assaulted her, Henry said evenly. The video evidence is very clear. Inside, we waited in a sterile hallway outside courtroom 3B. Melissa sat on a bench 20 feet away, crying quietly into a tissue. Josh paced, checking his phone, jaw clenched. I sat perfectly still, hands folded in my lap. I refused to feel guilty for this. At 10:15, we were called in. The judge was a woman in her 50s with reading glasses perched on her nose. She reviewed the file while we all stood. This is an application for a restraining order under the Family Law Act. Mrs. Linda Moore, applicant. Mrs. Melissa Brennan and Mr. Joshua Brennan, respondents. She looked up. I've reviewed the initial affidavit and supporting evidence, including video footage. Mr. Blake, you're representing the applicant. Yes, Your Honor. And Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, you're self-represented? Josh cleared his throat. We couldn't afford a lawyer, Your Honor. This whole situation has been blown out of proportion. It was a family disagreement that got heated, nothing more. The judge's expression didn't change. Mr. Brennan, I've watched the video. You threw a beverage at a 66-year-old woman during an argument about her refusal to sell her home. How is that proportionate? I was frustrated. We're under financial stress. We thought. What you thought is irrelevant to whether your actions constitute assault and harassment. She turned to Henry. You're also alleging financial exploitation. Yes, Your Honor. We've submitted bank records showing unauthorized access attempts and successful small transfers totaling over $4,000. Toronto Police Financial Crimes Unit is investigating separately. Melissa stood up suddenly. Your Honor, if I may, I'm her daughter. I love my mother. This has gotten so twisted. We were only trying to help her. She's alone in that big house. We thought if she moved in with us, she'd be safer, happier. We never meant to hurt her. Her voice cracked beautifully, perfectly timed. The judge looked at me. Mrs. Moore, would you like to respond? I stood slowly. Henry had told me to keep it brief and factual. Your Honor, I'm a retired teacher. I'm in good health. I passed a cognitive assessment 3 weeks ago. I live independently and manage my own affairs. My daughter and son-in-law wanted me to sell my home and move into their basement, then use the proceeds to pay off their mortgage. When I refused, Mr. Brennan threw a drink in my face. That's not concern. That's control.
The judge wrote something down. The evidence supports Mrs. Moore's account. I'm granting the restraining order. Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, you are prohibited from contacting Mrs. Moore directly or indirectly. No phone calls, text, emails, or third-party messages. You must stay at least 100 meters from her residence. Violation will result in criminal charges. She looked at Melissa. That includes using your children to communicate with her. Melissa gasped. I can't even let my kids see their grandmother? Your children are welcome to have a relationship with Mrs. Moore when they're old enough to initiate contact independently. Until then, you forfeited that privilege through your actions. The gavel came down. It was over in 12 minutes. Outside, Henry shook my hand. Clean result. They can appeal, but they won't win. I watched Josh and Melissa walk to their car. Neither looked back. I felt lighter than I had in months. Let's go home, I said. The restraining order changed everything, but it wasn't enough. Henry filed the criminal complaint with Toronto Police Fraud Division the following Monday. Detective Kwan called me that afternoon. Mrs. Moore, we've obtained a warrant for Mr. Brennan's financial records. The bank evidence you provided, combined with the electronic trail, gives us grounds for charges of fraud over $5,000 and unauthorized use of a computer system. What does that mean for him? If convicted, he's looking at possible jail time, more likely probation and restitution given it's a first offense, but he'll have a criminal record. I sat down heavily. A criminal record. For my daughter's husband, father of my grandchildren. Mrs. Moore, are you still there? Yes, I'm here. I need to ask, are you certain you want to proceed? Once charges are laid, you can't withdraw them. This becomes a Crown prosecution. I thought about the Sunday afternoon, the Coke dripping down my face, Melissa's voice screaming that I was cruel. I'm certain. Understood. We'll be executing a search warrant at the Brennan residence tomorrow morning. I'll keep you informed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining police at Melissa's door, Sophie and Ben watching their father being questioned, the neighbors staring. But then I remembered the $42,000 Josh tried to steal, the systematic withdrawals over months, the casual way he'd suggested I sell my house and hand them the money. They'd made their choices. Now came the consequences. The next morning, Detective Kwan called again. We executed the warrant at 7 a.m. Mr. Brennan was cooperative. We seized his laptop, phone, and several documents. Mrs. Brennan became hostile, tried to claim you were a vindictive old woman who couldn't accept your help. My chest tightened. And what did you say? I showed her the video of her husband throwing a drink in your face. She stopped talking after that. Henry arrived at my house an hour later with more news. Josh has been formally charged. 2 counts: fraud over $5,000 and unauthorized use of a computer system. Will Melissa be charged too? Potentially. If they can prove she knew about the transfers and benefited from them, she could face accessory charges. Right now, they're focusing on Josh. I walked to the window. Outside, my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, was trimming her roses. Normal life, continuing. Linda, Henry said, how are you holding up? I don't know. Part of me feels justified. Part of me feels like a monster. You're not a monster. You're a woman protecting herself from people who tried to exploit you. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I showed Henry the screen. Don't answer it. It could be them using a different phone.
I let it ring out. Seconds later, a voicemail notification appeared. Henry nodded, put it on speaker. I played it. Melissa's voice, thick with tears. Mom, they took Josh's computer. The police were at our house. Our neighbors saw everything. Sophie asked why the police were here. What am I supposed to tell her? That her grandmother is destroying our family over money? You've won, okay? You've completely destroyed us. I hope you're happy. The message ended. I deleted it and handed the phone to Henry. Add it to the file. She violated the restraining order. That's the right call, Henry said. I'll notify Detective Kwan in the court. This could mean additional charges for Melissa, criminal harassment, breach of court order. I nodded, feeling numb. Henry gathered his papers. One more thing. Josh's lawyer reached out. They want to negotiate a plea deal, probably hoping to avoid jail time. What do you recommend? That depends on what you want. Justice, punishment, protection. I thought about Sophie's crayon drawing, about Melissa as a little girl sleeping in my arms. Protection, I said finally. I want protection, and I want them to understand they can never do this to anyone else. Then we push for restitution, probation, and a permanent no-contact order as part of the plea. Do it. After Henry left, I made tea and sat in Frank's chair. The house was silent except for the clock ticking in the hallway. This was my life now. Quiet, safe, alone. And somehow, that was enough. 3 weeks after the charges were laid, Henry called with an update. Josh's lawyer wants to meet. They're proposing a plea agreement. What kind of agreement? He pleads guilty to 1 count of fraud under $5,000. They're downgrading the charge based on the actual amount stolen, not the attempted transfer. In exchange, he gets 18 months probation, community service, mandatory financial counseling, and full restitution of the $4,200 he took. I set down my coffee. No jail time? No, the Crown doesn't think jail is warranted for a first-time offender in a family situation, especially with young children involved. But there's more. As part of the plea, Josh agrees to a lifetime ban from accessing your accounts and a permanent no-contact order. Any violation triggers the original charges and potential jail time. What about Melissa? No charges.
They couldn't prove she directly participated in the fraud, but the no contact order covers her too, by extension of the restraining order already in place. I walked to the window. Spring was coming. The maple tree in my front yard was budding. When do they need an answer? The meeting is tomorrow at 2 p.m. at my office. You don't have to attend, but Josh's lawyer requested you be there. I think they want you to see him apologize, some kind of closure. I don't need his apology. I know, but it might help you see he understands what he did. The next afternoon, I sat in Henry's conference room across from Josh and his lawyer, a tired-looking man named Paul Weinstein. Melissa wasn't there. The restraining order prevented it. Josh looked terrible, thinner, dark shadows under his eyes. His hands shook slightly as he folded them on the table. Paul spoke first. "Mrs. Moore, my client wants to express his remorse for his actions." Josh cleared his throat. "Linda, I'm sorry. For everything. The account access, the pressure about the house, throwing the drink. I was drowning financially, and I convinced myself we were helping you, but I see now that I was only thinking about myself." His voice cracked. Real tears or a performance? I couldn't tell anymore.
"I've lost my marriage," he continued. "Melissa moved out 2 weeks ago, took the kids to her sister's place in Ottawa. She blames me for everything, says I destroyed her relationship with you." Good, I thought, then immediately felt guilty for thinking it. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Josh said. "I just want you to know I understand what I did was wrong, criminal, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure Sophie and Ben never learn this kind of entitlement from me." Silence filled the room. Henry looked at me. "Linda, anything you want to say?" I studied Josh's face, saw the man who'd sat at my table eating my food while planning to steal from me, the man who'd thrown a drink at me when I refused to be controlled. "I accept the plea agreement," I said quietly, "not because I forgive you, but because I want this finished. I want my life back." Josh nodded, wiping his eyes. Paul slid papers across the table. "Then we just need signatures." Henry reviewed each page carefully before I signed. Josh signed across from me, his hand trembling. When it was done, Paul stood. "The arraignment is scheduled for next Monday. Judge will formalize the plea. After that, it's over legally." "Thank you," I said to Henry, not to them. Josh and Paul left first. I watched through the window as they walked to the parking lot. Josh got into an old Toyota, not the Honda, probably repossessed. "How do you feel?" Henry asked. "Empty, relieved, sad, all of it." "That's normal. You did the right thing, Linda. You protected yourself and held them accountable. That takes courage." I gathered my purse. "What happens now?" "Now you live your life. The legal part is done. The healing part, that's up to you." I drove home slowly, taking the long way past the park where I used to take Melissa when she was small. The swings were still there, rusty but functional. At home, I made dinner for one. Sat at my clean table, no Coke stains, no broken glass. Just silence and space and the future stretching ahead. The week following the plea agreement felt strange. No court dates, no police calls, no frantic messages from Melissa, just quiet. I woke each morning to birdsong instead of anxiety, made breakfast without checking my phone every 30 seconds, watered Frank's tomato plants in the backyard, something I'd neglected for months. Henry called on Thursday. "The judge accepted the plea. It's official. Josh has been sentenced. 18 months probation, 200 hours community service, restitution payment plan starts next month. It's done." "And the no contact order?" "Permanent. Enforceable for life unless you petition to have it removed, which I strongly advise against." "I won't." After we hung up, I sat in the kitchen, where it all happened. The table had been replaced. I couldn't stand looking at the old one anymore. This new one was smaller, simpler. Room for 2, maybe 3, not a family of 6. That's when the letter arrived. I saw it through the front door window. A cream-colored envelope wedged into the mailbox. My name, written in Melissa's handwriting. My hand shook as I pulled it out. Henry had warned me this might happen. They can't call or text, but letters aren't technically prohibited under the order. You don't have to read it if you don't want to. I stood there for 5 minutes, envelope in hand. Then I opened it. Mom, I know I'm not supposed to contact you. I know what Josh did was unforgivable. I know I stood by and let things escalate when I should have protected you. But I need you to understand something. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking you to drop the charges or let us back into your life. I just need you to know that I loved you. I still do, even though I hurt you. We lost the house, couldn't make the mortgage payments after Josh lost his job over the criminal record. We're renting a small apartment now. Sophie shares a room with Ben. They ask about you constantly. Sophie made you a birthday card last month. I didn't send it because of the order, but she sat at the kitchen table for an hour drawing hearts and flowers, writing, "I love Grandma," in her crooked letters. I tell them you're busy, that you'll see them when you're ready. I don't tell them the truth, that their father stole from you and I helped destroy everything. Maybe one day, when they're older, they'll find you, and maybe you'll tell them your side. I hope you do. I hope they understand that you were protecting yourself, not punishing them. I'm sorry, Mom, for all of it. I hope you find peace. Melissa. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer in Frank's study next to his old letters and our wedding photos. I didn't respond. Henry had been right. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. And maybe that was okay. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I pulled out my old watercolor set, the one Frank bought me when I retired, insisting I'd finally have time for hobbies. I sat up at the kitchen table and painted. Nothing specific, just colors bleeding into each other, forming shapes that felt like emotion given form. Blue for sadness, yellow for hope, green for growth. When I finished, I looked at the abstract mess and smiled. It wasn't beautiful, but it was mine, created in this space that used to hold conflict, now holding only possibility. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia, the widow from my book club. "Coffee tomorrow? My treat. I want to hear about your Scotland trip planning." I typed back immediately. "Yes. 10 a.m.? Perfect. See you then." I set down my phone and looked around my kitchen. Small, quiet, safe. For the first time in months, I felt something unexpected. Contentment. Not happiness, not yet, but contentment. The sense that I was exactly where I needed to be, doing exactly what I needed to do. Protecting myself wasn't selfish, it was survival. And survival, I was learning, was its own kind of strength. I cleaned my paintbrushes, put away the watercolors, and made myself dinner. Just me, a bowl of pasta, and the evening news playing softly in the background. Normal. Peaceful. Mine. That night, I slept through until morning for the first time since Easter. Summer arrived warm and full of light. I booked the Scotland trip, 3 weeks in August. Edinburgh, the Highlands, Isle of Skye, everything Frank and I had planned but never managed. Patricia from book club became a regular coffee companion. She'd lost her husband to Alzheimer's 2 years earlier and understood the specific loneliness of widowhood. We didn't talk about our families much. Instead, we discussed books, gardening, travel, light things, healing things. "You seem different," she said one morning over lattes. "Lighter somehow." "I feel different, like I've been holding my breath for years and finally remembered how to exhale." She smiled knowingly. "That's what boundaries do. They let you breathe."
I joined a watercolor class at the community center. Tuesday and Thursday mornings, 9 seniors gathered around tables splattered with paint. We worked on landscapes mostly, trees, lakes, mountains, things that existed without needing validation. My instructor, a woman named Carol, praised my use of color. You're not afraid to let things bleed together. That's rare. Most people want control. You're learning to trust the process.
I thought about that a lot. Trusting the process, letting things unfold naturally instead of forcing outcomes. One afternoon in July, I was weeding the garden when my phone rang, unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Is this Linda Moore? A young woman's voice. Professional. Yes? My name is Amanda Chen. I'm a social worker with Toronto Family Services. I'm calling regarding your grandchildren, Sophie and Ben Brennan. My heart stopped. Are they okay? They're physically fine, but I need to inform you that Children's Aid became involved with the family last month. There were concerns about housing instability and parental stress following your son-in-law's criminal conviction. I sat down on the porch steps. What kind of concerns? The children are currently in temporary care with their maternal aunt in Ottawa, while Mrs. Brennan addresses some issues. I'm reaching out because Sophie specifically asked about you. She told her caseworker her grandmother loves her, but can't see her right now. Tears burned my eyes. There's a no-contact order because of what happened. I'm aware. I've reviewed the file. Mrs. Moore, I'm not asking you to violate the order, but I wanted you to know that when the time comes, if supervised visitation becomes appropriate, your grandchildren want to see you. When would that be? Months from now, at minimum, maybe longer. Mrs. Brennan needs to demonstrate stability first, but I wanted to give you time to think about whether that's something you'd consider. After we hung up, I sat on the porch for an hour watching clouds drift past. Sophie and Ben, in foster care with their maternal aunt because their parents' greed and dysfunction finally caught up with them. Part of me ached to call Amanda back immediately, to say, yes, bring them to me, I'll take care of them. But I couldn't. The cycle that destroyed my relationship with Melissa started with me always saying yes, always accommodating, always putting everyone else's needs before my own boundaries. I called Henry instead. Supervised visitation might be possible eventually, he said carefully, but Linda, you need to be certain. If you open that door, Melissa will see it as weakness. She'll push for more contact, more access. You have to be prepared to hold firm. I know. Do you want to see them? I watched a robin land on Frank's tomato steaks. I want them to know I love them, but I also want them to learn something Melissa never did, that love doesn't mean you get to take whatever you want from people. That's wise. Tell Amanda I'm open to supervised visits when the time is right, but only with clear boundaries, and Melissa is not present. I'll draft the terms. That evening I painted, not a landscape this time, but 2 small figures holding hands. Imperfect, abstract, but unmistakably a grandmother and 2 children. I hung it on my refrigerator next to Sophie's crayon drawing from months ago, the one Melissa mentioned in her letter. 2 versions of the same love, one from before the betrayal, one from after, both real, both mine. I made dinner, opened a bottle of wine, and sat on the back porch as the sun set. The neighborhood was alive with the sounds of summer. Children playing, lawn mowers humming, music drifting from open windows. Life continued, changed, but continuing. And I was part of it again, not as someone's mother or grandmother or caretaker, just as Linda, learning to paint, planning trips,
drinking coffee with friends, living, finally, on my own terms. October brought the kind of crisp air that makes everything feel new. I returned from Scotland tanned and exhausted in the best way. 3 weeks of hiking, exploring castles, and eating fish and chips by the sea. Frank would have loved it. Patricia met me at the airport with a welcome home sign and a thermos of coffee. We laughed the whole drive back, and for the first time in years, Toronto felt like home again. Not a battlefield, just home. The house was exactly as I'd left it. Quiet, clean, mine. I unpacked slowly, hanging my Scotland photos on the refrigerator next to Sophie's drawing and my own watercolor of the 2 children. A collection of what was, what is, and what might be someday. My watercolor class had an exhibition in November. Carol convinced me to submit 3 pieces. Nothing fancy, just landscapes from my Scotland trip. To my shock, 2 of them sold. Small amounts, but the validation felt enormous. "You're blooming," Patricia said at the opening reception. Late bloomer, but blooming nonetheless. She was right. At 67, I was learning who Linda Moore was outside of wife, mother, grandmother. Just Linda. Learning to paint, learning to travel alone, learning that self-protection wasn't selfishness. In December, Amanda Chen called again. "Mrs. Moore, I wanted to update you. Sophie and Ben are doing well with their aunt. Melissa has completed her parenting courses and found stable employment. The children will likely return to her care after the new year." And visitation? We're proposing supervised visits starting in February. 2 hours, once a month, at a neutral location, a social worker present. Melissa will not attend. Are you still interested? My hands trembled. Yes, I'll send the paperwork. That night, I sat on the back porch, wrapped in Frank's old cardigan. The neighborhood was decorated for Christmas, lights twinkling on every house except mine. I'd stopped decorating after Frank died. Maybe next year I'd start again. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Grandma, Aunt Julie helped me. I miss you. Love, Sophie." Attached was a photo, Sophie holding a drawing of a house with a rainbow over it. I cried for 10 minutes. Then I saved the photo and texted Henry. "They found a way to reach me. Through her aunt. Is this allowed?" He responded immediately. "Technically, yes. Third party, child initiated. Don't respond directly. Wait for supervised visits." I didn't respond, but I looked at that photo every day. Christmas morning, I had coffee with Patricia and 3 other widows from book club. We exchanged small gifts and laughed about our plans. Cruises, classes, volunteer work, women, rebuilding lives after loss. "To new beginnings," Patricia raised her mug. We all clinked glasses. That afternoon, alone in my house, I did something I hadn't done in months. I pulled out Melissa's letter from the drawer and read it again. "I hope you find peace." I had. Not the peace that comes from reconciliation, but the peace that comes from choosing yourself, from saying no, from protecting what matters most, your dignity, your autonomy, your right to live without fear. I folded the letter, placed it back in the drawer, and closed it. Then I texted Henry 3 words. "Case closed. Thank you." He replied with a simple thumbs up. I made dinner, watched the sunset, and went to bed early. Tomorrow I'd start a new painting. Maybe visit the community garden Patricia kept talking about. Maybe plan another trip. The future stretched ahead, uncertain, but mine. They'd called me cruel for setting boundaries, for refusing to be managed, manipulated, controlled. But cruelty would have been letting them destroy me. Instead, I chose survival. And survival, I learned, was the most radical act of self-love there is.
If you've ever been called selfish for protecting your peace or cruel for setting boundaries with family, you're not alone. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose yourself, even when it costs you everything. What would you have done in Linda's situation? Let me know in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, subscribe for more real stories about family, betrayal, and the courage it takes to choose yourself. Remember, you don't owe anyone your peace, not even family, especially not family.